Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
And this week on the show, we have
Tru Taylor.
Yes, we do. And it's another one of our newer artist or newer writer podcast, the part of that series. And we could stop here and edit what I just said, but we're just going to keep going because why not? But Tru actually just published her first book under this pen name in July. So she is published in 2021. She's done amazingly well. And that was due to a lot of planning and just her positive attitude.
We talked about because she had published under a different pen name earlier. So this is a new pen name that she's launched, and she's kept them both separate so that they're, her ocelots wouldn't be
right, because that was a different genre. And also she was not unsuccessful with that other pen name. She just felt like she wanted to write something different and fun. So now she's writing rom-com and doing just really well.
Yeah. So we talked to her about the differences in her marketing plan for each pen name and kind of what she's done recently and like how she stays positive when all this 2020, 2021 craziness that's going on. And it's really good. Lots of good tips, like really practical things you can do if you're launching a new series. And then lots of like mindset things, which is, mindset is everything.
It is everything. Yeah. So it was great.
So what have you been doing this week?
Well, Sara and I couldn't decide which one of us should answer this first because we're both like, what have we been doing? I have been putting the finishing touches on my 20-book speech. And that's been really fun because
fantastic, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's what I wish I'd known about indie publishing, but I've gone back through the podcast and just pulled out a few quotes from some of the guests. And, that's been so fun. I'm just so glad we did this podcast. I just love it. But it was fun. It's been fun going through and listening and pulling out those quotes and stuff. And we've just had some great people on this podcast. So if you're new or you're kind of dealing with something, go back and look at our list of our previous guests because
there's lots of topics we've covered.
Lots of topics and lots of really good information. I mean, I would have given anything to have some of that information in
some
the
of these resources.
Yeah. And we're coming up on our 100th episode.
We are.
No, I know.
Let me check because I usually write it down.
I don't ever look at it.
So this one will be episode 94. This will be episode 94.
I can't believe it. Anyway, so I've done that and I'm knitting.
How is the knitting going?
The knitting is going well. I can only knit a straight line. So it's either a scarf or a blanket. And what I'm knitting is somewhere between the two. I'm knitting this thing like I live in the Arctic. It's huge, but it's a scarf. And, but really, it is just for fun and to kind of have another creative outlet. Yeah. And, but the problem has been, I've been really into foreign shows that have subtitles, and I can't knit and watch those shows because I have to keep up with both things. Like I have to watch my knitting, every once in a while, and I cannot read, I don't read real fast.
Me too. Me too. I'm into the foreign crime dramas, especially the French ones. And it's like, you can't do anything else except watch those. Yeah. And I've got my whole family watching them now. It's so funny.
It's so funny. And then of course the Astros are in the
World
Series. So that's what we're doing on the nights they play. And I have my Astros shirt on today, even though they don't play today. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Just we have a family wedding this weekend that we've been getting ready for too. Also, I have been a lot of my energy has gone to, and do not judge me for this, but has gone to deciding what I'm going to wear to 20 bucks that will accommodate my.
It's a crucial question for all women.
COVID spread that, that I allowed to happen. So,
oh my goodness. That's always a huge deal when you go to a conference.
Yeah.
So what are you going to wear?
I know.
Yeah. I totally get it. Totally get it.
And are my feet going to hurt? And am I going to be too hot? Because I'm never too cold. Am I going to be too hot? Are my feet going to hurt? I mean, it's stupid stuff like that. So yeah, I know y'all wanted to hear that this week. So anyway, what are you doing, Sara?
Well, we keep it real, right?
We do.
So this week, the French book 1 launched. It launched today, actually, was the day it actually went live. And I checked and I've had 5 or 6 sales. So I'm like, that's very cool for me because I really didn't have a French list of, I have some readers who speak French. And so I announced it to my list. And I'm sure I did hear from some of my readers that they had purchased it, which I thought was very sweet because they'd read it in English and they wanted to support me. So that was very cool. So
very nice.
Working on that. And, sometime we should do a show. Maybe we should do a roundup show for this year, what we've learned this year, because I've learned a lot about translations and just small, tiny things that are so helpful once you learn them. So maybe we should put all that in.
That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could do a big roundup of what we've learned, and I could talk about that as one of the things. So did that. So that was exciting. And I have nothing really else going on. I'm writing. I'm doing the translations and working on some Pinterest. One of our other guests that we talked to, WIKT Tate, she said she's doing some Pinterest. So I'm running some Pinterest ads. I'll let y'all know how that goes.
Okay.
I'm just like dabbling, just like doing 1 or 2. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I've been kind of diving into that, listening to some podcasts about Pinterest advertising and stuff. So it's very interesting. And the thing that I like about it that sounds good to me is that you put your pin up there and it's always there to be discovered. How, like on most social media, it just disappears after a while. But this, your pin stays there. So if somebody searches for a certain keyword and you're using that keyword, your pin can be found. And it's not about interacting with people. It's not about like, how many friends do you have? It's like, what information can you share? Yeah. What, hey, here's some books that you might like about the 1920s. So,
which is awesome. Yeah. That's great.
So I'm looking into that. So I'm doing a little research on that. And then, let's see, there was one other thing. Oh, big news, Draft to Digital, their books to read links.
Yes.
They now have print links. I'm so excited because I've been asking for this for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And,
and they're like, to shut helpful. Sara up, we're doing this.
I know. Pretty much. I keep asking and they keep saying no. So we finally got that. I'm really excited about that. That's really good news.
That's great. I forgot to say my free run that I did.
Oh yeah. How did that go?
I got nearly 15,000 downloads. I can't remember the exact number, but it was close to 15,000. And I was very happy about that. The promos, I'm happy to talk about which promos I did, but I don't have that list in front of me right now. So maybe next time. Yeah. But I was just super, super, super happy. I can tell you that on the free booksy day, I had 5,000 downloads, 5,200, I think. So
that's great.
Really happy about that. Yeah. And what I am seeing is I had a little dip my Tuesday and Wednesday of the book I just put out. And now that book has gone right back to where it was because of, I think read through even now. And so, I'm really happy. I'm glad I did it. Will I do it again? I don't know, but maybe because it's kind of a good strategy to keep things really even. So we'll see that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I was going to go back to our question of the week. Last week, we asked about how did you find your editor and cover artist? So I was going to read out a couple of comments. It seems like the majority of people, it's like, personal recommendations or recommendations in groups. That's always good. Kimberly says she looked up book cover designers on Pinterest. There's Pinterest coming up again, and scrolled their website and then asked authors I followed on Instagram. And then Alexa said, I used Readsy to find one editor and met another at a conference. She says, I've taken to stalking the authors doing well in my space to see who does their covers, which I think that's probably the best thing you can do.
I think that's so smart. Yeah.
And this is a small tip that people, I guess they don't think of this. If you go to the look inside of a book, a lot of times the cover artist will be listed inside, like on the copyright page. Yes.
I do that. Yeah.
I know. And so that's and I have people email me all the time saying, hey, who does your covers? And I'm like, it's in the book. I'm just surprised people don't
you don't even have to buy the book. You can just do the look inside and see. That's a great tip.
Yeah. So that's what Heather Gilbert said as well, that she uses the look inside. Another recommendation from Readsy, from Catherine. So lots of good ideas, and thanks to everybody who responded. So hopefully that's helpful to people who are looking for cover designers and editors.
Yeah. So what's our question of the week going to be?
I think we talked at the end of this interview about positivity, staying positive in mindset. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I think we should say something like, how do you stay positive? How do you, how else should we phrase it?
How do you stay positive? I mean, do you use affirmations? Do you meditate? How do you stop those negative feelings from kind of taking over?
And those voices that kind of can dominate your life. So, yeah. All right. Okay. Well, we should get on with the interview.
Yes, let's do.
All right. Here we go.
Bye.
Today, we're super excited to have Tru Taylor with us. Hi, Tru. How are you?
Hi, doing good.
Yes, we're really glad you're here. Tru has been without power, and so she had a fire in her yard. So we're happy she's made it onto the podcast.
And I'm happy you can't see me. I'm glad it's just audio.
We're all happy about that.
Yeah, we are all happy about that.
All right. Well, let me read your bio, and then we'll get into the questions. Award-winning romance author Tru Taylor writes romantic comedies to make you swoon, smile, and sometimes snort with laughter. She runs on Diet Coke and dark chocolate. She's my kind of girl. She lives her lunches with her girlfriend and drives to the town beach several times a week to watch the sunset over the water. Tru is the author of the Eastport Bay small town rom-com series and loves living in a small New England town where she's surrounded every day by the beautiful coastal setting you see brought to life in her books.
Very good. Yes, and I've read some of Tru's books, and she does bring it to life. I felt like I was there because my husband's family is from kind of the Northeast, so they're Cape Cod and then in Maine. And so when you were describing some of this, I was like, I've seen those sites. So that's cool. So tell us how you got into writing.
Well, I was always a writer in some form or another. Right out of college, I went into TV news, and I was a reporter and news anchor. So I was always doing some form of writing, but just a few months after graduating in my first job, I covered a murder trial that I thought was super interesting. I thought it would make a great book. And I started trying to write a book, and then I realized I have no idea how to write a book. It's so different from broadcast writing, where your whole goal is to make everything as succinct as possible.
Yes.
And so I could, I had what I thought was a pretty good first chapter, and then I got about 5 chapters in, and I thought, I have no idea what to do. How on earth do you finish a book? So I literally, went to the library and tried to check out books on how do you write a book, and they didn't help me all that much. This was a while ago, and there were no writing blogs or anything back then. So I kind of kept trying over the years.
Right.
I started about 6 novels, and I never really could get past a few chapters because I had no idea about story structure. I read a lot, but it was just kind of a mystery to me how people got from the beginning to the end. So it wasn't until I quit my TV career to stay home with my kids. And by that time, thankfully, writing blogs had come along, and they were so clear they were just so simple to understand. And I went from one to the other and started getting really deep about learning story structure, and then finding some writing books about how you actually structure a novel. So Yeah. So that it took me, I was over 40 by the time I really got to dig in and learn about how you write a story and actually finish a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool. That's great though. I love those stories. Yeah.
I had kind of the same experience where I knew how to start a book, but I had no idea what to do after chapter 2 or 3. It's hard.
Yeah.
The mysterious middle. Yeah. So I know people will wonder, are there any writing books that you still remember that were extremely helpful to you that you would recommend now, or is it all just kind of a blur?
No, well, Save the Cat was the first one that saved me. I met somebody at a writing conference and she was talking about it. I had never heard of it. It was my first writing conference, and she sat with me at lunch and I was like, thank you. So I have read so many craft books, but that one got me started. And then probably my very favorite one takes that book and then gets really in depth. It goes further with it. It helps you plot basically scene by scene. And it's called My Story Can Beat Up Your Story. And it's by Jeffrey Allen Schechter. It's also it's a screenwriter book, essentially, but it turns out great novels. So,
yeah.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how long did it take you to write your first book after you kind of figured out the structure?
Well, the first book that I finished took me 6 months, writing about 3 hours a day. I started writing when I put my kids to bed, and then I would write until my husband got home from work at midnight. So, so it took me 6 months, but then it took me about 2 years to edit that book because I had made so many mistakes and I was learning the craft. And every time, that was my little project book, every time I learned something new about writing, I would go in and edit that book. And I wouldn't recommend that. It's better to move on to another book. I learned so much by finally moving on and starting other books. Like I never did figure that one out until I had written several other books. Then I knew enough to go back and fix that book.
Very good.
Yes,
very good.
It's hard to fix that first book.
Yes.
Was it that crime book or was it a different book?
The crime book was the second book that I wrote. I never forgot that. I did go ahead and finish that. No, it was called Hidden Deep. It was a young adult fantasy, and it was not the first book I published, but it was the first book I finished.
Okay.
It needed fixing before it was ready to go out in the world.
Right. Now, remind me, were you traditionally published or have you always been indie published?
I've always been indie. I did start wanting to traditionally publish because I sort of grew up as a baby writer in RWA.
Yeah, me too.
Everybody around me was going traditional. And I was blessed to be a Golden Heart finalist 2 years in a row. And so all of my Golden Heart sisters were published, and they were all traditional. And to me, it just seemed like that's the thing you want. But then I started getting bombarded from all these different sides with information about indie publishing. And I just started thinking, this is the way I need to go.
Yeah.
It felt very revolutionary at the time because of who I was surrounded with. And I had an agent. I had a book out on Sub. And I told her, hey, I'm going to self-publish while that's happening because I just felt like it was kind of the wave of the future. And I'm not sorry at all.
No.
I'm so glad. Yeah. I have no interest in traditional anymore.
Not at all. Well, you're part of our new author series, though you're not a new author. You've been doing this a while. And so let's talk about like when you first started, did you have a marketing plan? And then we'll talk about your new author stuff, which is under a pen name that you've just recently released under.
It is totally different. What's happening with these two pen names. With that one, I did have a plan. I just followed some of what other authors said that they were doing on blogs and some information I had gotten at an RWA workshop where my plan was to write in a series, write romance, obviously, write in a series. I did sort of this soft launch thing where I basically did zero advertising for book one because everybody said your ROI is just not as good if you only have one book out. So I basically put book one out and kind of ignored it and put book two out. And then I dropped book one to 99 cents and started running some really low budget Facebook ads. And that started working. And then when book three came out, I made book one free and really started running ads. And it was kind of off to the races. So yeah. And also applied for a BookBub feature deal, which I got when I had the 3 books out. I wish I had waited. Yeah. It became a 10-book series, and boy, that would have been
nice. Yeah. Well, that's great. And that was in a completely different genre though than romance, or wasn't it?
That was young adult fantasy, very romantic young adult fantasy. Yeah. And I did end up continuing that series, but I did it totally different than I have done the Tru Taylor launch. Okay. I have always been risk averse. My husband would say tight. So, like I said, with that pen name, I just did very low ad spend and then built up and built up. And at that time I could get like a 3 times return on my, sometimes 5 on whatever I spent on Facebook ads.
Wow. And so that was with the first series that you released.
Yeah. So I've done the Mark Dawson Facebook ads course, and Maria Louise did one that I took, and I went to Sky Warren's presentation at RWA in Denver on Facebook ads. So that was my main focus for advertising.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Well, should we ask now about how that compares to the marketing you've done for the for your newer series?
Yes. Let's see. So I mentioned I had been risk averse. Tried to get over that for this pen name, because I think things are even more competitive now. I was not nearly on the front end of self-publishing. I didn't start until 2015. So, but still it was easier. I do think there was less competition then than there is now.
Right.
And this new genre is very, very competitive. Contemporary romance, rom-com. So, I listened to what a lot of presenters had said at the RAM conference that I went to, where they said, spend your ad budget in the first week. Basically, if you're going to do ads, just throw it all at the front end and try to help your rankings get up there and get some notice. So I, gritted my teeth,
girded your loins, so to speak. Yeah.
And did that. And it worked out really, really well. The other part of the strategy is I am putting out a book a month. I started in July, and I had, several books already written. I needed to revise them. So I felt like I've been under the gun the whole time, but it was doable. I don't write that fast. I write pretty fast. I don't write that fast. So the last book that I have already ready to go will come out in November. And after that, I'm going to go to at least 2 months between releases, maybe 3. I'm going to try 2 months and see if I can pull it off. So anyway, fast releasing and then spending my ad budget up front.
Yeah. So, now, go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say, how long did it take you to prepare for the rapid release? Because did you have several banked and then you released? And then, so how long did it take you to get to that point before you were ready to go?
Probably about 6 months.
Yeah.
And I had to set up the new website and social media. I kind of have limited social media at this point. With the other pen name, I did all the things.
Yeah.
I've tried to narrow my focus a little bit. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Right. Yeah. And then did you have a newsletter before you, for this pen name before you released?
Yes. And I should mention that one major part of my strategy was hiring a smart coach.
Yes, you should mention that.
I wonder who that could have been.
I'm kidding.
Because I knew through mutual friends and through listening to your amazing podcast, which I've been addicted to since it started, that Jami launched very well in this genre. And everybody I was listening to was talking about what Jami was doing said she was so on brand. She just nailed it from the beginning. And that's what I wanted to do, because I did so much flailing with that first pen name and did so many things wrong. I wanted to do things right from the get-go this time. So, we talked about, one of the things that we talked about was building a newsletter beforehand. So I did a reader magnet and, put it up on BookFunnel, and I joined, some of those BookFunnel group promos, and did a few swaps before I published anything. And the list is not huge even at this point, but it was decent. So I had at least somebody to promote it to.
Right.
Yeah.
So important. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it helped.
Oh,
but,
so much. Yeah.
But so what do you wish you knew now? I mean, what do you know now that you wish you'd known back when you started,
back when
your YA fantasy? Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I think the major thing that I wish I had known back then was that it's very important to keep your pen name on brand. I did what a lot of newer writers do, and that I was writing whatever struck my fancy, the book of my heart, and then the next book of my heart. So they were in different genres. I was doing them under the same pen name. And I think that it's been very advantageous for me this time to be very, very on brand. With the newsletter, the social media, the covers, because then
just the voice of everything.
Amazon knows who to sell it to. People know what they're going to get when they pick up a Tru Taylor book. And I'm sure I confused some of those early readers by writing some new adult contemporary and some young adult fantasy. The name, and then Amazon was like, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And we should say that Tru has 5 books out. When did the last one come out?
Last week.
Last week. That's right. And they are all under 2,500 in the store right now. Most of them are under 2,000. So she's done very well. She's taken advice. I mean, she asked for advice, she took advice, and then she's also just smart. I mean, she's not, she's doing what she sees other successful people doing. So I think that's great. I love that. I'm so happy for you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been super, super exciting. One of my favorite podcasts that y'all did was with Pippa Grant. And I just loved her transparency. I love her books too, but she talked about how she started over and wanted to do everything right from the get-go. And I listened really hard. I remember she had said it was her 6th book that really took off and went to the races all by itself. And so that's what I was planning on. I didn't expect anything from the first release. It way outperformed my expectations. I think it got to like under 800, which, stunned me. And then book 3 did even better. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. And then the one that came out last week, which was book 4, actually book 5 comes out in November. So
that's right. So there's 4. Yeah.
So book 4 made it to number 209 in the Amazon store. And
it's still at 300 something.
Oh, is it? Okay. I haven't checked.
I just looked. I just looked.
But, so it was just crazy to watch the numbers on the Amazon dashboard, and it's in KU. All the books are in KU. So just watch the page reads and just be like, what is happening? This is, Now, how are you advertising? Like, are you still spending the same you were with that as you did with that first one? Or are you spending a little less because you have more books now and just spending on the first one? I'm curious. I did go through and look today to see. So I actually spent a little less on the first book because I was trying to do accelerated Facebook ads and they just wouldn't spend my money.
Yeah, I know.
They'll spend it on your daily ads, but I cannot make those so every day after day was going by. I'm like, well, I can't spend any money. Help me.
Right.
So I finally had an ad that started running. So I spent only during release week on that one, and then I stopped. And book 2, I couldn't get any ads to spend anything. I don't know what happened. Book 3, I spent a little more. I don't know if y'all want me to say numbers.
You don't have to. But I'm just curious as to how
it's less than most people spend, I think.
Yeah.
From what I hear from conferences and presentations I've listened to, it's less, but for me it feels like a lot. But it's definitely. I was prepared to lose money on the first book, or maybe even a few, and I haven't. They've all earned out right away, which has been great. And then this last one, I've had the best month I have ever had, including a month when I had a BookBub feature deal.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Amazing. That's just amazing, because your YA pen name was successful. I mean, it wasn't that you weren't doing well. So can you tell us why you, I'm sorry, Sara, I think it's your turn to ask a question. I'm just tell me everything I want to know.
Well, I think you were going to ask this one. And my question was like, why did you switch to rom-com? Because that, like you said, that's a super competitive market. Is that what you were going to ask, Jami?
No. Okay. It is, but go ahead. Well, that really is kind of what I was going to ask. Like, why, since you were successful, why the switch,
Right. Why change what's working?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I knew that the smartest thing that I could do after having a successful series would be to follow it up with a similar but different series in the same genre. I knew this. And even though I knew it, I really could not make myself do it. For whatever, I may have been burned out because I had put out 10 books 2 or 3 months apart. I could not come up with an idea that I wanted to write for the life of me, even though I was like, I need to write in this genre.
Right.
But also what I really, really love to read is what I'm writing now.
Yeah.
I was saying to every time I would finish a book, I would reward myself by getting to read contemporary romance and rom-com. And also, even though I wouldn't say my fantasy books were exceptionally dark, when you're writing urban fantasy, there's always a bad guy. There's always, life and death and save the world and all of this. And I was just, with 2020, I needed to write
too much.
Yeah, it was. And I needed to be in just a more positive space where just everything was lighter and happier. And that's all I wanted to read. And it just made me so much happier to write it. And sometimes I was in between those fantasy books, I would go and write a contemporary book.
Oh, wow.
Not publish it because I knew it was totally off brand. By that point, I figured it out. So I thought, maybe I should be writing what I really, really love to read. Yeah. And I've been so happy that I've done that, because even though it's a ton of work, I don't ever resent it. I feel like I get tired, but I don't ever get exhausted by it, because I'm really loving what I'm doing. And I'm just, as soon as I finish one, I'm super excited to work on the next one.
Right.
That makes me think I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's a good sign. Yeah.
I agree. Well, where did you find your editor and cover? Because the cover for that first book was, they're all great, but that first cover was wowza. It just was perfect for the genre. It had shades of some other really successful authors, but it wasn't copying. It was exactly what you're supposed to do. So if anybody wants to look, that's the Bookworm and the Beast, right? Yeah. And so, but yeah, where did you find your editors and your cover designers?
So I've had the same editor since the very beginning. I asked author friends for recommendations. And then I got samples from 5 different editors, and she and I just clicked. Yes. And she's amazing and wonderful. Her name's Judy Roth. Mm-hmm. So she's edited all my books. And I've been lucky to be able to have the same person.
Yes. I agree.
Yes.
I mean, I just feel like when they know you I guess there's maybe some downfall to that because they get a little complacent maybe, but it's just so nice having someone know you and know how you write and know your voice.
I don't curl up in a ball and cry.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
She can get me to do what she wants me to do.
Right.
And so these covers, I'm almost embarrassed to say I did the cover design on them.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't on purpose. I really, really wanted one of the big girl cover designers. Mm-hmm. And everybody was so booked up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I did buy, for the first time ever, I bought photos from photographers. Mm-hmm. I've used 2 different photographers. Scott Hoover did the picture on the first one that you like so much, Jami. Mm-hmm. And the other is Eric McKinney from, I believe it's called 612 Photography.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So, did shopping for exclusive images. Book 3 is actually a stock photo, and people loved that one. It was like crazy that happened. I just saw the picture. I thought he's just so perfect for the character to go with that.
Yeah.
But I never did my own covers before with my fantasy covers. I absolutely, I found the 2 designers who did my 2 different urban fantasy series in Facebook author groups. Just people recommended, and I went and looked at different people's work and chose who I loved. But with these, I looked at the top sellers in the genre. I got the K-Lytics report, who's doing well, did all of their covers. And I just, did a lot of playing around and a lot of research on how can I make it look like the genre without looking exactly like anybody else's.
Right.
So,
that's really difficult to do.
Yeah, it is. Hey, can you explain to people what the K-Lytics report is in case they don't know?
Okay, I will try.
That on you. Yeah, you go ahead.
Really, really smart guy.
True.
Has really smart computer programs that track sales. I think it's mostly on Amazon, if not exclusively Amazon. Yeah. And it shows you the just every detail you could want to know about who the market leaders are in each genre. Mm-hmm. And these reports come out, periodically on, I think I just got one about like what's hot in Christmas.
Yes. I saw that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always done it for the different genres, and the report will tell you even down to like what their blurb looks like. Mm-hmm. It gives you their blurbs.
Pricing.
Yeah. Pricing. Let's see.
It kind of breaks it down too into subgenres, doesn't it? And so you can kind of see
there might be an opportunity, like an underserved area. It gives you keywords that people are using in their blurbs.
Yeah.
And,
it's just a real useful tool. Yeah. But there is a charge, correct?
It is, but it's not too much.
It's not bad. No.
$9 for an individual report, which I think is totally worth it.
Yeah.
And I know that he sometimes has some that are free, or you can sign up and get some sort of report, maybe not the specific genre you're interested in, but he does have some lead magnets for him, for his site.
Yeah. If you're a data geek, you will absolutely love it. I probably utilize a tiny percentage of it because I am not smart enough to understand it.
No, but somebody like Pippa Grant, she just would devour that, and look at all the stuff, which is fabulous. And then I listen to her.
Yeah, so, there you go. But it sounds like you got what you needed from that to help you do the covers and kind of get your direction.
Absolutely. And another, if you do Amazon ads, it gives you names to target.
True.
So good.
I've done extremely well with Amazon ads. I know Facebook ads a whole lot better, and I like BookBub ads too. Mm-hmm. I utilize them a little bit, right around the beginning of a release, but try Amazon ads. I keep trying.
I know.
Well, what's been your biggest surprise with your new pen name? What surprised you the most?
Well, I think the early success of it.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big believer in positive thinking. So I'm not going to do something if I'm not expecting it to be successful, and taking all the steps I can possibly do to make it successful within my control. So I expected it to be successful, but it happened faster than I thought. So I'm extremely grateful, in addition to being surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good surprise.
Yeah. But I think it goes to show, and I'm going to tread lightly here, because I used to say, why? I don't really know why people are struggling. I mean, I didn't say that out loud, because then no one would like me. But in my head, I would think that. But now, because this year's been tough for a lot of people, I'm like, okay, I get it, universe. Like, I understand. But I think it does go to show you how you can set yourself up. Like, you can do as much as you can do. And then after that, it's kind of up to the readers and everything. But you really did all the work up front. And I think that that's what we're seeing in this new author series. The authors that we've talked to are the ones that really, a lot of them have done work up front. And I think that that's so important. They've learned a lot. And so they're not going in blind and just throwing things up. So I think that's really important. And
I should also mention, I feel like you helped me with our coaching session. Mm-hmm. I've had other authors from Facebook groups who did swaps with me. Mm-hmm. That helps. It has definitely not been a one-woman show or anything.
No.
I'm super grateful for all the help that I have received.
I'm just getting involved, and like our guest last week said, getting involved in groups and being a member of the group before you're a author, you know what I'm saying? And then that just creates relationships, and then you can go from there as far as swaps or any kind of cross promo or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that's
and it's also a whole lot more fun to do it with other people.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. What's been the hardest thing, and what's been the best thing?
The hardest thing for me was trying to write during 2020. That was awful.
Lord, yes. Yeah.
We all agree there.
Yeah, I did the Clifton Strengths thing, and number 1 for me is achievement. Number 2 is input, and I was taking in a whole lot of input that I should have been putting back out again. So I had to learn to basically tune it out, try to do meditation and positive thinking and everything, even to be able to write at all. But my biggest struggle now, I would say, is delegating. Mm-hmm. I have too much to do, and I'm really bad at letting other people do it. I actually hired an assistant who's amazing, and I'm not letting her do anything yet. I need to slow down enough to give her things that she can do it, rather than be like, oh, well, I just need to get it done.
I can do it real quick. Yeah,
I can do it. Yeah. So that's a big shortcoming of mine that I'm trying to overcome and to work on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so have you been distracted by the success?
No, I mean, I did have a few days where I was hitting that refresh button.
You sprained your finger? Yeah.
A little bit. But I have such tight deadlines that I don't have time to sit around really and celebrate very much. I'm just like, I do feel super happy about it, and I'm getting back to work.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, and you asked the best thing, and
yes,
the best thing for me is definitely that I can make a living doing something that I really love doing.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
There's a lot of work and long hours. It's even from the beginning for me, it was never something I ever thought about quitting, because I just want to do it until I'm 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those jobs that you can just keep doing. You may not have to continue at the same pace, but
Right.
As long as we have the mental.
I will make it till 100 if I do that.
Yeah. Well, have you had to make any mindset? I can't say it. We'll have this edited. So wait a second here. Have you had to make any mindset shifts in your thinking?
Definitely. My first mindset shift was getting over the idea that I needed to be traditionally published.
Yeah.
To be happy and successful. Mm-hmm. So shifting to the indie mindset was the first step. And it was, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. That making that shift from doing kind of a soft, slow launch to a bigger launch in the beginning. Mm-hmm. That was big for me. That was really hard for me. And I'm grateful that it paid off. Mm-hmm. But that was a hard thing to make myself do. And I think another one for me is sort of believing in myself more, letting myself be me. Like, I feel like I am really, really writing what I want to write now, the way that I want to write it. And it was hard for me for a while back earlier in my career when I had the other pen name and I did write some contemporary romance. I was very worried about what other people would think about what I was writing, specifically people in my small, deep South hometown and my family. And I made the mistake of letting everybody know what my pen name was. So then I felt constrained. I was worried about being judged. And so shifting to basically a little bit more of an I don't care mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's tough. I think everybody has that because we're putting even if we're not writing like a memoir, there's still a lot of us in all our stories, even if we're writing our pen name. And so it is I feel vulnerable sometimes when I put things out. It's like, this is fiction, but that as authors, we know how much of ourselves go into the books. And so it does make us a little more vulnerable. So, but then I have to remember too, that not everybody is going to love my book and there's no way it's going to appeal to everyone, family members, friends, strangers, people on Goodreads,
Right. That's a big mindset shift that I had to make from, the time of my early books coming out till now, and to where now I really do feel comfortable with that idea. And in the beginning, I hoped that every single person would love everything that I wrote. And an author friend of mine had told me something really helpful about reading reviews is that when you finish the book and put it out, your part is done. It's not about you anymore. Now it's about them. It kind of becomes their property. And it's also about them in that whatever they bring to the book is what it is for their experience. Like they could read the same book 5 years apart and have a totally different reaction to it depending on what they're going through. Right. And you have no control over that. So you just
that's so true. It's so hard though, but that is very, very true. It's really hard. Well, tell me about, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but like, how do you keep this positive attitude? Like do you meditate? Do you, are you an affirmations person?
I am, at the risk of just sounding like a big old dork. That's fine. I do affirmations every day. And I sort of grew up with it. My mom was very big into positive thinking and had us listen to, at the time, cassette tapes, from speakers about that kind of thing and visualizing and goal setting and, setting expectations and believing that it was going to happen. I did kind of get away from it for a while, but I had to get back to it during the early days of 2020. I listened to, I went to a workshop before where a psychologist talked about, positive mindset and writing. And I had bought her book and a CD came with it that I started using for meditation pre-writing. And I think the book is called Thinking Right, WRITE. So it came with that. The CD it's like guided meditation, basically helping you relax and then give yourself positive messages about how your writing session is going to go.
Right.
So I started doing that every day, and it was really the only thing that could get me settled down enough to write. And then I'm always reading some kind of a positive thinking book.
Yeah.
I recently read Soundtracks by Jon Acuff, and he has this he calls it the new anthem, and it's sort of a list, kind of a little mantra thing that you start out every day saying. And he just basically challenges you to say it every day for 30 days.
Right.
See how it goes. And it really helped me.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I don't think anybody's going to think you're a dork for being into positive thinking. And because like, if we can't control our thoughts and if we're always going to a dark, sad place, that's just not good for creativity.
It's not really. Your thoughts are the only thing you can control.
Exactly.
In the world that we're living in. There's so much that's out of our control, and it's easy to get sucked into it. And I say that as somebody who absolutely did, and I had to suck myself right back out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I would have told you that I am a super positive person. Like I would have told you that. I would have probably fought you on it. But you don't know how negative you are until you really make an effort to be positive. And then I'm like, dang, I am a negative Nelly for sure. And when I think about it, and my daughter edits this podcast, so she's probably going to laugh. But when I think about, like, I grew up in a family that they're from a small town, and I adore them all, but there's a lot of limited thinking there. Like, she will tell you that you can only be a teacher or a flight attendant. I mean, those are your two choices, sort of things. Yeah. And so even though I recognized that after I left, I still held on to some of that. Like, I'm glad that my kids do not have that kind of limited thinking. I mean, they have gone beyond what I have, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to like, just think, well, I probably shouldn't do that anyway, that kind of thing. And you have to make a real effort to pull yourself, especially if you grew up in a family that does have limited thinking like that, to pull yourself out. And then with everything else going on around us, you really have to work at it. I mean, it's for some people, I guess it comes naturally, but I don't know.
I surprised myself by how negative I got and how much I allowed everything that was happening externally to pull me down, which is why I sort of doubled down on my efforts to be positive. And one of the things that in Jon Acuff's little list of your daily things you say is the best response to obstacles is to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that has absolutely been put to the test this year, and these months that I have been putting out these books, rapid release, have been unbelievable with all the stuff that has happened in our lives. And I'm so glad that I at least have that I always say to myself, everything is always working out for me. And people around me now laugh every time I say it.
Yeah.
Shut up. But I say that because it's either going to work out or not work out, and I choose for it to work out. And
right.
The best response to obstacles is to do it anyway. And that's what I've been doing with these book a month things, with all of this. There's just been so much crazy stuff going on in our personal lives too. So.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in a hotel right now because her front yard caught on fire. I mean, y'all, she's dedicated, and so, but I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that mindset is so important, so critical. And yeah, if you can get your mindset in the right place, you can do a lot. So my other question that I wanted to ask is when did your book 1 come out in this new pen name? When did it release?
July 27.
Yeah.
Of this year. Okay. So you are living proof that you can start a new pen name and be successful in 2021. And a lot of people feel like, oh, the ship has sailed, it's too late. But if you have a plan and know what your marketing and your branding, if you do all the work, it is possible to do really well, which is a great thing.
Yes, I have a few newer authors that I've been talking with and encouraging them that you absolutely can still do it. There's still so much opportunity. And I just think it's going to keep on growing. You know, more people are into ebooks now than ever. More people are into audiobooks.
Yeah.
More people need an escape from the real world.
Yeah.
I've taken a few plane flights recently. Everybody on board was reading. You know, there is opportunity.
That's great. So what do you think the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success is?
For me, the number one thing was learning to be a good writer.
Yeah.
Really working on the craft, because I think no matter how much money you might spend on a release, if it's not a good book,
right,
you get horrible reviews and people are not compelled to read anything else you've written, you're just dead in the water right there.
Correct.
I think the best thing I ever did was really study craft and work as hard as I could to be the best writer I could. And I took, my favorite writers' books and broke them down, like wrote in the paperback books, marking the scenes, like this is a scene, this is another scene, this is figure out how many scenes does it take to make a book? What should I be doing from scene to scene to make me keep on reading,
Yeah, it's like craft is like the foundation. If you have that good foundation, then you can build all the marketing and advertising, everything on top of that. But if you don't have that, it's really hard. You don't have the same potential.
Yeah. And I think other than that, writing in a series. And this series is interconnected standalones. So hopefully it pleases people who like standalones and series.
Yes, exactly.
But it makes it easier to know what book I want to write next.
Right.
And what book I'm going to write 6 books from now. I already, have a plan for all of that. I never have to wonder, oh, gee, what should I do? What should I follow this up with? Gives me a place for me to go and a place for the readers to go. If they find one of these books and like it, then they have other books ready-made for them to turn to.
That's great. Yeah. So I do have, that was supposed to be our last question, but I have another question. So having grown up in RWA, how do you turn off your editing brain to be able to write these books so fast? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So I learned from the beginning that for me, and everybody's different, for me, it's best to do a fast first draft. So I'm a major plotter. I plot out down to the scene level ahead of time, and it doesn't ruin the experience for me. It just makes it more exciting because I feel like I've got a roadmap in my hands, and even if the GPS fails me, I will know where to go.
Right.
So the books, they change somewhat as I actually write them, but I never feel lost. I never worry about a saggy middle or anything like that, and it helps me write really fast. I can write a first draft in 3 weeks. And then it takes two more weeks of going back and doing, make it pretty drafts.
Right.
And it helps me. Yes, we all have that inner editor, and she wants to speak up. And I just say, nope, I don't have time for you because I am drafting fast. I will worry about you next draft,
So are your drafts shorter than your, I mean, do you write short and then edit long kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my first drafts are mostly, there are a lot of dialogue and a lot of detail. I will,
fill in later.
Doing my second draft. Okay. Like my first draft sometimes will be talking heads in a room, and the second draft is like, what are they doing while they're talking?
What do they do with their hands? I always say.
Right.
Yeah. Very good. Well, this has been awesome. I have loved talking to you. Tell people where they can find you.
My website is trutaylor.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram if anybody wants to come chat with me.
And that's Tru, TRU.
Right. I should say that. TRU, TAYLOR.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I love your podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on. It's been great to talk to you and
it's been so fun
about your success. We're so happy for you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. So we'll have all those links at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening today. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast. And we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.